biggest defeats in U.S. history, leading to an estimate of 2 million deaths, mainly consisting of U.S., Vietnamese troops and civilians, lasting over 20 years. 7,300 days of brutal combat, leading to the retreat of American troops in a free southern Vietnam, led by the ARVN. The people of Vietnam were controlled by the French until World War II. The Allies defeated the Japanese and left a power vacuum in Vietnam. French began trying to reassert control over Vietnam against the governing communist leader Ho Chi Minh, rejecting a French control and asserting in North Vietnam as self-governed and starting attacks on the southern French-controlled section.
On May 7, 1954, Ho Chi Minh's Viet Minh forces defeat the French at the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. July 1954, world powers agreed to divide Vietnam at a conference in Geneva. September 10, 1960, Lua Don replaces Ho Chi Minh as first secretary. The Vietnamese people deeply loved independence, freedom, and peace. But in the face of the United States aggression, they have risen up united as one. November 8, 1960. Richard Nixon loses the U.S. presidential election by John F. Kennedy. I don't think that unless a greater effort is made by the government to win popular support, that the war can be won out there. In the final analyze, it is their way. They are the ones who have to win it or lose it. We can help them. We can give them equipment. We can send our men out there as advisors, but they have to win it, the people of Vietnam against the communists. September 2nd, 1963. 1963. President Diem and his brother Ngo Dinh Ngo are murdered. On November 2nd, 1963, Kennedy was assassinated and Johnson is sworn in as his president. March 8th, 1965. The 1st Marines land in Dunkirk. November 14 through 18, 1965. American troops fight their first large-scale battles against the North Vietnamese army. On April 15th and October 21st, 1967, hundreds of anti-war protesters gather in New York Central Park and in Washington. The summer of 1967 to the spring of 1968, armies and Marines faced relentless onslaughts from North Vietnam. January 31st, 1968, North Vietnamese and Viet Cong troops launched surprise attacks against targets throughout South Vietnam. February 1968, Communist forces execute at least 2,800 people. Most of them were South Vietnamese civilians. March 16, 1968, American soldiers kill more than 500 unarmed civilians. On March 31st, 1968, Johnson announces he will not run for re-election. We are not about to send American boys 9,000 or 10,000 miles away from home to what Asian boys ought to be doing for themselves. Nixon is elected president to end the war in Vietnam in 1968. On October 15, 1969, the first moratorium to end war in Vietnam. November 3rd, 1969, Nixon goes on television to call for national solidarity on the Vietnam War effort, appealing to take a silent majority to support his policies. 4 days after, Nixon announces the expansion of the war. 4 students at Kent State were shot by National Guardsmen during a protest. The South Vietnamese launched operations against North Vietnamese forces in 1971. October 22, 1972, North Vietnamese forces is successfully repelled by South Vietnamese. The ceasefire agreement is the reach between U.S. and North Vietnam. In 1973, the last group of troops leave South Vietnam on March 29, 1973. Nixon leaves office August 9, 1974. The U.S. normalizes with Vietnam. Bill Clinton is now the President of the United States. Many years after the Vietnam War, Wesley Fox and many other soldiers were recognized by the President of the United States. Wesley Fox was born on a small farm. He loved farming, loved riding horses, and always loved being around his ranch. Wesley Fox enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1950. His plan was to be a farmer, but then he wound up being in the military for 43 years. He took tours in Korea, being a rifleman and a platoon sergeant. He was paired with Vietnamese people, but didn't really like the way they were fighting. His mission was to watch out for the enemies. He was only down 90 Marines, and he started off with 240 Marines. During the fight, they killed Wesley's last two puns. He went out and did what he had to do. Wesley Fox was wounded and refused for medical help and continued fighting for his country.
Wesley Fox enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1950. Contrary to his plans to be a farmer, he wound up instead staying in the military for 43 years and rising to the rank of colonel. Fox served 2 tours of duty in Korea as a Marine rifleman and later as a platoon sergeant. His defining moment, however, would come during the Vietnam War.
My assignment was with the Vietnamese Marines as an advisor, infantry battalion advisor. The Tet Offensive caught me halfway through that tour, but basically I was not happy with the way the Vietnamese handled the war. It was too much of what I classified as search and avoid instead of search and destroy operations. We didn't take the fight to the enemy. Bottom line is I extended 6 months in Vietnam to go north with our Marines because I knew they knew how to take the fight to the enemy. I was a first lieutenant by that time, and even though a Marine rifle company commander normally is a captain, I had hopes of getting a company as a first lieutenant. And as luck would have it, I did end up as the company commander of Alpha 1st Battalion, 9th Marines. Ridge with the battalion command group. And I, for whatever reason, was in his CP, getting some guidance of what we're gonna do, I guess. And I'm on my helmet, seated on my helmet, and he tells me he's gonna put me in for the Medal of Honor. Well, I almost fell off my helmet. I couldn't believe it. So this was January of 70, it was approved on Nixon's desk. I didn't get it until March of 71, a year and 3 months later, waiting for the right political climate. Being a Marine at that point, I'd had 22 years in the Marine Corps, so I was pleased and proud to receive the medal for what my company did, for what we did on 22 February. A lot of our countrymen don't know what the Medal of Honor is, and that's one of the tasks that the Medal of Honor Society has, is making our young people aware and our countrymen aware of what our servicemen have done, and along the way, some of the recognitions that they get. Again, I'm pleased and proud to wear it for the Marine Corps and what my Marines did on that particular fight. Again, I feel a little bit of an emptiness in knowing that there were others deserved in that fight that were not awarded. Again, because nobody was there to tell the story.